Hello! I've got this Clairefontaine watercolour sketchbook that I've been dying to use. It's only got 12 sheets and I figure I can probably fill this entire thing during the month of October. It's got beautiful cotton paper. I'm really excited to try this out. I hope it's good. But before I do that, I want to decorate the cover. So let's get into it! If I'm going to be using this all month, I really want to make it my own, and the cover's pretty flimsy. It is actually just watercolour paper, so I thought I'd take a page out of this Stamperia Garden Scrapbooking Paper pad, and I've already picked a design out. I chose a page which isn't too busy, but it has some really cute pictures on it, and I think I might want to cut those out separately. So I'm going to use the bulk of this blank area for the cover page, and when I was measuring it up here, I think I have to have that butterfly too. It's going to fit quite nicely, except for the bottom corner, which is going to cut that petal off, and I can't have that, so I'm actually going to cut that flower out, which is going to leave a bit of a blank space at that right-hand corner, but I'll deal with that shortly. So while I cut this out, I've had the idea for a few years now to do Bectober, basically whatever I want, so it's not Inktober or Drawloween or any of those ones. I'd like to come up with a fresh idea, and I've already got some things in mind. I'm not worried about doing a picture a day, so I'm probably not going to have 31 pictures. I'm just going to do whatever I can manage to fit in, but I definitely want to fill that whole book if I can. Okay, so I've cut the flower out because I wanted to preserve that, and you can see there's a little bit of a corner there, but I figure because I'm going to cut some of the other pictures out, I can find something to stick over that, and I'll just layer the paper up. I've got my favourite art glitter glue out, any kind of PVA or even a glue tape would work, and I'm just going to cover the entire front of the page where I think the paper is going to go with that glue. I completely forgot I'm not covering that right hand corner, but that doesn't matter, I'll wipe it off afterwards. So I'll just chuck a bunch of glue on and then try to line this up as well as I can. It took me a few goes to get it exactly straight, but I've managed to get that down, I think, pretty well, and it's gone to the edges of the book. You'll see that it's hanging over the book at the moment, but that's because it is much easier then to flip open the page and cut off the excess. So I was just wiping off that glue that I'd forgotten was going to be exposed, just opening up here, and I'm cutting that paper off. Being double-sided paper, the design on the back of it is also very pretty, but it's just going to have to be sacrificed for the good of the front of the paper. I might have a few scraps left over. You could probably see in that right-hand corner I've written Daniel Smith Triads, because yes, I am going to paint all of the triads out in this book. That is definitely my main plan. They're not going to fill the entire book though, so I'm going to have to come up with some other ideas. I really wanted to cut out some of these designs and stick them on the paper to make it a bit more interesting, because it's looking a bit boring at the moment. So I have to go for that large flower, and I'll choose a few other designs to cut and stick on there. As per usual, I was just making this up as I went along, and here's what I've come up with. I like the little house as well, and the birds. I've got a few left over, and I might put those in another journal or even another page of this book, but I'm definitely going to cover that little area up with these birdies and then put my flower there. I just basically moved things around until I was happy with the layout of them. One last thing I was going to do before I stuck them down is use this distress ink in Vintage Photo, which is a really lovely brown, plus a sponge tool, and what I'm doing is just going around the edges of the paper to eliminate any white bits where I didn't cut it exactly right. It also, as the name says, distresses the edges, so it gives it a really vintage look, especially with the Vintage Photo ink, and I just really like this. I learned this technique from watching paper crafting YouTube videos. It just takes that white edge off the paper and makes it look a lot better. And I was pointing out that the edge of that little house is on the right-hand side there. You can see that doesn't really matter. I'm going to line that up with the edge of the paper anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. Just finishing up with these last few pieces. And I had considered painting the cover, but I just decided that paper crafting would be more fun. I don't really do a lot of it on my channel, occasionally, but I'm not a paper crafting channel, so I generally keep it off camera, but sometimes I just like to share some of my other hobbies. I don't do this sort of stuff all of the time, but I go through phases with it, and I've accumulated quite a lot of pretty papers over the last few years. It's a nice way to actually use some of them up. Maybe you can see that there's just a very subtle brown outline around the pieces of paper now, and it kind of makes them stand out from the background, which I really like, giving them a defined edge. Now I'm using the art glitter glue and sticking it down, not being too careful with that glue, just kind of blobbing it on and hoping for the best. I can always use a tissue to wipe it off. I was looking at the left side of the book where the ring binding is going. That's not very pretty like that. I can't really put any washi tape or anything on there, so I'm actually going to paint around it with a pen very shortly. But before I do that, I also want to put a title on here, and this is going to be Bectober 2025. I did consider getting out a lettering stencil, but in the end I just freehanded it with the pencil and I'll go over it with a pen. Of course I ran out of room here, so I'll have to fix up those squished letters and just go over the top of that flower. It doesn't really matter, but I got most of it to fit in that blank space. I wasn't sure if I was going to use black, but in the meantime I just really wanted to colour this edge with a gold paint pen. It's one of the Artex ones with the interchangeable nibs. I've got the big chunky nib on it and I really wanted to switch it to a brush, but do you think I can find them? Nope, I've lost them already, so I'm just going to persevere here. And you can see under the ring parts that the paper's still white. I actually went off camera and really pushed the pen underneath so that I could cover all of it with gold and make it look actually good instead of really patchy and nasty. I then decided I was going to use the pen for the lettering, and I think it looks quite nice, and the whole thing has got that vintagey feel, which I really like. Just finishing off here, I needed to fix up that ring bound section. That's much better. It didn't feel quite finished though. Because I've got all the gold on one side, it just felt really unbalanced. So I'm actually just going to rule a little bit of a border with that gold pen around the rest of it. It's not going to be as thick as the left hand side, but it just kind of ties it all together and makes it look more cohesive. So I was much happier once I'd done this. And of course I got gold paint all over my hands as well. It's not a proper project until I get covered in paint or glue or some other inky substance which doesn't come off my hands. Speaking of ink, I'm just using a black pen here to define my letters a bit more because the gold wasn't showing up as much as I wanted it to. So I figured a little bit of black line would just make it pop out a bit more. I'm not going around all of the letters, I'm just doing part of them to kind of make it look like a bit of a shadow or something. I was just making this up at this point. But I think it looks quite effective in the end. I'll just finish off that 2025. I've started so many sketchbooks this year, it's ridiculous, and I've finished maybe one of them. Anyway, here's another one I'm going to start for Bectober 2025. I actually really love the cover. I'm so excited to get into this, and that's going to be my next video starting in this book. I'm planning to do paintings for all of the Triad sets by Daniel Smith, starting off with the 4 themed ones and then the 4 seasons. That's what I'm hoping for. See, I've written it up there so I don't forget. Hopefully my video's ready for this weekend. Let me know if you have anything planned for October, or should I say Bectober. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, a hype, and don't forget to subscribe to see all of my upcoming videos. Here's a couple to watch for now, and I will see you really soon in the next one. Swatch you later. Bye!